Welcome to GoPo Pro. Today we're going to work on comparison tables. There are 5 of these puppies on the AP exam. If you know how to do these tables, which you will at the end of today's session, you're going to get 5 out of 55 points on the AP exam. All right, let's walk through a comparison table. Today we're going to look at a comparison table comparing 2 Supreme Court cases. Remember, there's 15 Supreme Court cases you have to know for the AP exam. Today we're going to compare 2 of them. On every comparison table, there are 2 columns. One of the columns is about McCullough versus Maryland. The other column is about U.S. v. Lopez. And what you're going to do is look at the 2 columns and decide which one you know better than the other. Probably for most of you, it's McCullough versus Maryland. So the first clue in the first column is declared an act of Congress unconstitutional. Now, this question's become a true-false question. All you have to do is ask yourself, did McCullough versus Maryland declare an act of Congress unconstitutional? The answer is no. In fact, if anything, it did the opposite. So A, column 1, is false. It's not true. And we're going to mark a line right through column 1, row A, and we're going to mark it all the way through this puppy. So both columns in row A are marked out. Let's move down to row B. Row B decided that Congress had implied powers. Did McCullough versus Maryland decide that Congress had implied powers? Yeah, it did. So we're going to leave that row alone. We're not going to mark through it. Okay, let's move down to the next row. Row C says this, led to an increase of power for the national government. Did the effect of McCullough versus Maryland lead to an increase in power of the national government? Yeah, it did. And so we're going to not mark through that row. We're going to leave it as it is. Now we'll get to the second column later, but for now, we've already gone down A, B, and C, and we've marked 1 out. Now we get down to row D of column 1. You see, we only need to know whether 4 things about McCullough versus Maryland are true or false to complete the first part of our task. Column D says, decided that a state had the power to tax a national bank. Did McCullough versus Maryland decide that the state of Maryland could tax a national bank? No, it did the opposite. And so we're going to mark a line through row D, all the way through column 1 and all the way through column D. So now we finished our first column. 2 things were true, 2 things were false. And so you'll see that we really only have to choose between 2 rows to find the right answer. All right, so now we're on column 2. And this is pretty easy peasy because we've already marked 2 of the rows out. So all we have to do really is figure out which of the 2 possible answers is correct. We already marked out row A, so we don't even have to look at that one. Let's look at row B. Column 2, U.S. v. Lopez. Row B says, ruled that state laws were supreme to national laws. Now think about that a second. Could state laws be supreme to national laws? Would that violate the supremacy clause? Yep. And so we know that is not possibly the answer. There is no world that we could live in where state laws would be supreme to national laws. That doesn't even make sense. So we're going to mark through that. All right, so now we're on row C, U.S. v. Lopez. Row C states, established limits to Congress's power under the Commerce Clause. Okay, is that what U.S. v. Lopez said? Did it in fact establish limits to Congress's Commerce Clause power? Yes, it did. And so that is correct, and thus we're going to leave it untouched. We're not going to mark through it. It looks like we have a winner, but let's go down to row D and just double check and make sure that we're on the right track. Finally, on row D, U.S. v. Lopez, it states, declared the Gun-Free School Zone Act unconstitutional. And yes, that is exactly what U.S. v. Lopez did. That is correct. And that would be the answer, it's that we've already marked through row D on the first side. And so that's not our answer for the question. So just to review, we looked down 1 column, we found all the things that were wrong and marked through them on both sides, and then we moved to the second column and did the same thing. With that, we found 1 answer that was not marked out on both sides, and that was row C. All right, congratulations. Let me walk you through the steps again to find the right answer. Start on the side you know best, work your way down, mark out all the things that are not right on both sides, and then repeat that process on the other side. Once you find the row where both sides are not marked out, that's your answer. There are 55 questions on the AP exam. 5 of them are comparison table questions. These things take time, but if you work through them, mark out things that aren't right on both sides, you're going to find the answer, and that's going to give you basically 5 points on the AP exam.